I'm Steve Boykin, and I am coming to you live from the heart of the Santa Cruz Mountains in beautiful, drizzly Boulder Creek, California. Joining me is my good friend and soon to be co host of an unyet named show. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Carney. Jason, how the fuck are you, man?
I'm doing fan-freakly-tastic. Here in Reno, Nevada, and let me tell you, you're not missing much. A little frustrated with some current events that are going on. I think we'll be discussing tonight, but I'm kind of excited to jump right into it and raise hell.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We're here to talk about Julian Assange. First off and foremost, I 100% support Julian Assange. I think his arrest is a travesty, and I hope beyond hope that somehow we can come together and convince the fucking demons that have him that he needs to be set free. Having said that, uh, Julian Assange was arrested several days ago. He was dragged out of the embassy in Ecuador. I'm guessing, coincidentally, the Ecuadorian embassy is supposed to receive something like 4.32 billion from the IMF.
Yes,
On top of that, um,
it happened on Monday of last week. We need to throw that in there too. That it occurred on Monday, and Julian was mysteriously grabbed without any argument or issue on Friday of that week.
and that is a week ahead of the UN Rapporteur for Torture and the UN Rapporteur for Human Rights, I believe, were scheduled to interview him. So, ahead of the UN coming to assess his condition, he's dragged out of the embassy um, on charges of, take it away, Jason.
Essentially, what they're trying to hit him now is, to be exact, it conspiracy to attempt to hack. That is the one charge right now. There's been another one that's been unsealed, and it's nonsense. Basically, what they're trying to cultivate is growing into the espionage charge. They really want to pull that 1917 gem out. It's essentially uh, the whole summation of what they have against him is a joke. It's nonsense. But they essentially said that Assange aided Manning in trying to hack into the system to get evidence that the U.S. government was conducting illegal activities. Problem with that is Manning had full access to these documents, all this information, and what have you. There was no attempt to hack. They're also trying to work up, and I'm trying to find the exact terminology because I hate being wrong. Um, where it brings up, and I'm getting this from the ACLU because I love to go here when it comes to First Amendment issues. Um, the Justice Department characterizes the whole situation as manners and means. Now, what that means is that the person didn't commit the crime; it was the methodology and the inclination of the person. Basically, that their attempt to do it was the whole scope of the indictment. It's a nonsense indictment that's just to try to bring Assange onto our soil so that we can have a very joke, a mockery of our justice system type of trial in which to make him pay for exposing, quote unquote, exposing what the United States had done in Iraq. And what it boils down to is, unfortunately, um, we can all predict what's going to happen as soon as he touches down. It's going to be a joke of a trial. It's going to be slanted heavily against him on nonsense charges, but they're trying to step by step, by defaming him, by mischaracterizing him, by just basically total character assassination, going after him, leading the public to think that he's this monster who is capable of committing these alleged crimes that weren't crimes. It was journalism 101. I know the New York Times and CNN and all of them have forgotten what that is, but what he had done was journalism 101. Uh, it's so frustrating to me that we as the American people, especially when it comes to things that bother them, scream about, oh, my Second Amendment right, oh, my Fifth Amendment right, oh, my Fourth Amendment right. All this has been violated. Right now, the United States government is declaring war on all of us who do not jive well with the United States government, and we put out fact based information, well researched, and present evidence of issues. Abby Martin, we were just talking about Steve right here. There's a multitude of people who are working really hard to present the public with the truth in a way that is easy to digest and very verifiable. The United States government is essentially telling all of us that we are going to cease and desist or we become enemies of the state. And that's why this trial is so important, besides the fact that I stand with Steve, 100% support Assange. I'm not one of those fair weather people that during the Bush administration, as a Democrat, were cheering Assange on when when all these things came together. And then 2016 completely stab him in the back and call him basically the Antichrist for the crimes against Miss Clinton or Mrs. Clinton, Secretary of State Clinton, what have you.
And let's be perfectly clear about this. What he's being charged for, again, are the WikiLeaks file dumps related to Chelsea Manning, the 2010 drop, the collateral murder video, which, by the fucking way, should be shown to every high school junior right before the recruiters come and start lying their fucking asses off to them all day long. Show them collateral murder. It's related to that. The smear campaign against Julian Assange, more often than not, is his character, who the Central Intelligence Agency, MI6, Mossad, Putin's government, everybody's government wants disappeared. So they're going to smear his character, because what he's done is he's given the public access to vital information that we all need to make an informed decision about who we let in charge of our military, in charge of our government, in charge of our fucking police forces, in charge of all of this shit. So Julian Assange is painted as a rapist. Not only were the charges dismissed, the accuser recanted, said she was pressured by the UK government.
Now, for full transparency, the two cases that occurred there, one is 100% what you said. The second one is in this era of Me Too. I will be careful in how I characterize this woman, but she is trying to seek to have the case reopened. Now, I don't know what means that, she's coming to and what have you, but that is a potential possibility in which the second accuser is trying to do. But the first one is recanted. The UN even stepped in and said this was BS for all intents and purposes. The UN can't agree on anything.
And let's be clear on this too. The Democrats are willing to postpone or shove off to the corner or suspend entirely the Me Too movement if the person who you are bringing to light happens to be on their team.
Right. I think the whole Al Franken affair was prime proof of that. It took evidence that was so vulgar and disgusting and demeaning toward this woman that he allegedly had this interaction with, and I believe it's already been fact-based at this point. I only use allegedly for legal purposes. I don't want anybody coming after me for slander. But at the end of the day, at first there were people in the Democrat Party defending him. And then when the evidence was so insurmountable that you couldn't help but say, dude, what the hell were you thinking? That's when they called on him to resign. So they were willing to go to bat with him until the evidence became so vulgar and outlandish.
Well, and
that
it
he had no other
Kirsten Gillibrand, right? Didn't Kirsten Gilly Bean cheerlead the crucifixion of Al Franken for political expediency to fucking get herself some serious Me Too cred?
Exactly. Sacrifice at the altar of Me Too, I suppose. And the thing is I'm not against Me Too. I'm a very big supporter of Me Too. I don't, like anything else, it could be used and weaponized. I mean, we saw that. But at the end of the day, there are issues that need to be brought up, and that has nothing to do with Assange. But at the end, it's one of those things where the Democrats are more than happy. As I said with Julian Assange, they were the biggest cheerleaders during the Bush administration of WikiLeaks, of Julian Assange, calling him a man of integrity, one of the few true journalists left in this world, etc. And then come 2016, when all he did was the same thing: provide facts that were left in WikiLeaks Dropbox, publish it so the world could see it, just like with the Iraq situation. that Democrats loved him for, all of a sudden he's the Antichrist because Mrs. Entitled lost the race. And they're accusing him of costing her the race when in all actuality it was her failed campaign in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and in Wisconsin.
Let's not forget that she was the most unlikable candidate in the history of Democrats since they kept record of such a thing. Let's not forget that she's on record cackling over the eventual death of Muammar Gaddafi, over the death of Muammar Gaddafi.
Let's go with the domestic side as well. When she shouted down a Black Lives Matters activist at one of her fundraisers,
the Clintons
caught on video, thankfully.
The Clintons are horrible fucking people. They have a litany of crimes from war to probable murder at their fucking hands. But the crime that she got exposed for in WikiLeaks was rigging the rigging the Democratic primary, which is something that I want to talk about because I don't know if you got a chance to see it. I did not. Bernie Sanders gave a town hall tonight, and I was told by a previous guest of Slow News Day to just wait and see. Bernie's going to address Julian Assange. He likes to contemplate these things. He likes to take his time and get his shit together before he addresses it. You wait and see. He's going to do it on the Fox Town Hall. And I don't know if he did that. If anybody does, if any of the 3-4 people watching right now know if Bernie addressed that or not, please let me know, because I would love to find that out. His silence to me has been fucking just deafening. And the progressive proverb is, for every horrible decision the government's made over the last several decades, there is a clip of Bernie Sanders speaking out against it. Right? That's the progressive proverb. Except for when it came to rigging the 2016 primary. Except for when it came... Yeah, against him. Except for when it came to Russiagate. Except for when it came to the death of press freedom as we know it, while innocent people are being tortured because they're not going along with the intelligence community and multiple presidents of the United States.
And let's extend this out too from a constitutional standpoint. The trial of Julian Assange isn't just about freedom of the press. Let's extrapolate. That can go into freedom of speech. That can go into our Fourth Amendment. That can go into our Fifth Amendment. That can go into a multitude of areas in which every American is affected, not just people who either dabble or make professional their career in journalism. This isn't just a journalist issue. This is a actual crackdown on dissent by everybody. Anyone who disagrees with the government, if this case goes through and he's found guilty on these charges, you, me, and anybody else who has the ability to go on YouTube to create content, to do anything else, if it doesn't go with the American government stance of that day, we could be brought up on charges of espionage, of sedition, of you name it. There's a wider scope here. It's not just about freedom of the press at this juncture. This is the ability for Americans to do what they've done since, quote unquote, the inception of this country, speak out against their government when they disagree with it, without sounding too pompous.
No. We're living in an era where it's our job to correct the rewriting of real time as it happens, along with what little bit of the past that we can get our hands on. History is written by the winners. There's no accurate account of history anywhere.
That's true.
We don't fucking know. We don't know. We know what we're told. We know what we've uncovered. We know what we can kind of put our hands on. But we have no tangible way of knowing what our actual history is, and our real time gets rewritten in front of us every single day. Every time you turn on cable news, every time you turn on fucking Joy Goddamn Reid show or Rachel Maddow's show or Sean Hannity's show or fucking CNN. Every time history is being real time is being rewritten the fuck in front of you. And it's our job as the independent media to step in the way in whatever little space that we occupy. However much of that space we can occupy, we've got to be able to do that and say this is fucking bullshit. And the disappearance of Julian Assange, the disappearance of WikiLeaks, the disappearance of whistleblowers, the disappearance of journalists, real, independent, uncorrupted journalists. There's no after that. We're just simple subjects.
Right. And that's sadly, you've kind of nailed you've hit the nail on the head with this. It's such an egregious attack on our rights as Americans, and this is happening to a foreigner. Julian Assange is not a citizen of the United States. Let's be real here. The crimes weren't committed on American soil, and yet extraterritorial jurisdiction somehow applies.
We've had the extraterritorial jurisdiction to put military bases in over 100 countries, man. We've had the extraterritorial jurisdiction to have bombing campaigns currently in 8 countries, and we don't have a declared war.
My question is, though, at what point with the internet, it has a wide array of information. It's very easy to find this stuff out. At what point will the American people decide that enough's enough? Will it be after Assange is in prison and our news, the mainstream media basically becomes, instead of just secretly being the mouthpiece for the government, they become overtly the mouthpiece for the government? What will it take that? Will it take the inability for people to protest, to petition, to freedom of speech? I mean, at what point do we draw a line in the sand and say enough's enough? When is it going to be that point where we abandon comfort, happiness, and slavery, if you will, and say enough's enough?
Well, here's the thing, and this is what sucks about it, is that every time somebody tries to step out of the herd, they're painted as batshit crazy. And we were talking about this a little bit before. They do let people out of the herd to disseminate a semblance of truth, but these people are so batshit crazy in and of themselves that there's a delegitimization of the truth, even when it's 100% accurate. Right. Let alone something as like ridiculous as the rain is making the frogs turn gay. But it turns out the chemicals in the water through generations biologically alter frogs and change their gender. It doesn't. So any nugget of truth gleaned from there's chemicals in the water that are turning the frogs gay. Any fucking gleaning of truth that you could get from that is gone, because the truth is delegitimized by the source. The source is held to a different standard, to the same standard as quote unquote mainstream journalists. Like, you wouldn't let this guy on ABC, fucking. So they're deplatformed. While they're being deplatformed, a shit ton of other left-leaning independent organizations are also being deplatformed, or being shadow banned or demonetized. It's people don't speak up because they see what happens when you go outside the herd, man. They see how you're treated. It takes a certain amount of crazy to go outside of the herd to begin with.
Right.
You know, but to do that and then to accurately report on things and to know that they're accurate and have that put next to the production value of the state propaganda outlets that we have in Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, New York Times, Washington Post, to put it next to that and to have people willing enough to think outside of their programming, it's a tough sell, man. It is.
It really is. I'm trying to get you evidence of what Bernie might have said. I just read from Fox News that it was a fiery uh, town hall meeting, and that allegedly he won the day.
Well, I
His
saw
press
some of the
conference.
highlights, man. So Brett Breyer asked the crowd, show of hands who's got medical insurance from their employer, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people raised their hand. And then show of hands who would drop that for Medicare for all. And not only did most of the hands stay up, more hands went up. The moderators were getting booed by the audience at a couple of points. Yeah, man. He when they rigged that primary again, it gonna make some people mad.
Well, that's the thing, though, is 2016 should have, like, you and I and others had stayed in the fight. We stayed pissed off. We stayed angry. We kept presenting evidence. It's like we talked about the other day. The day after 2016, I was one of the first people to say Hillary didn't lose because of anything other than piss poor campaigning in the blue firewall states, which she assumed was hers, so she didn't focus on that. And she lost three major states with electoral votes, and albeit very close, but still lost when polling was showing that it was going against her leading up to election day. Instead, we want to blame Julian Assange. Instead, we want to blame the Trump voters. We want to blame everybody but one
She
of the
went on a
worst
book
candidates
tour
in
blaming
history.
everybody but herself. She literally wrote a book blaming everyone but herself. It was one of the few books that had the answer to the question on the cover. And what happened? Hillary Clinton. That's what fucking happened. Like, in terms of running a campaign, with the goal being win the campaign, win the election, they ran a fuck show from start to finish every step of the way. Moving beyond that to where we are now, we've got Bernie Sanders, who in terms of running a campaign with the goal being win the campaign, is doing a phenomenal job on paper. Yeah. In terms of media representation, they're still kind of giving him the 2016 treatment, although they seem to have switched that to Tulsi Gabbard, and they're treating Tulsi like they treated Bernie.
Oh,
And
can I say one thing real quick? To the Bernie Sanders people and to the Tulsi Gabbard people, if you're attacking each other, run your head into a brick wall. Either candidate is exactly who we want. Shut your mouth. You're bothering those of us who actually do this day in and day out. Stop attacking each other. I am a vocal advocate of Bernie Sanders, and I am a vocal advocate of Tulsi. I would think either one as president would be far, far, far better than any candidate that's out there, Republican or Democrat. So to attack one another, as I've seen on Twitter, I've seen on Instagram, I've seen on Snap even, I don't get that because you guys realize that stuff disappears after a few minutes. Why
no, it
are
doesn't.
you being so damn ignorant? If you're going to support anybody's elevation, it's going to be Tulsi and it's going to be Bernie. So just please shut your mouth if you have any ill will toward one another. Because at this point, the progressive movement has been so fractured since 2016, it's not even funny. And you're basically shooting your ally. You're blue falconing all over the wazoo.
I'll say
So
this,
just
man.
please end that.
I'll
Sorry.
say this. Bernie supporters and Tulsi supporters, y'all are going to need each other when they rig that primary, and you're going to want another battle buddy. And also Tulsi supporters, please stop calling it Tulsi's foxhole. All right? It sounds like an all-nude strip bar right outside of Camp Lejeune. Y'all, I love you. I do. But please.
Tulsi's troopers. Something. Anything. Anything. But at the end of the day, I mean, Steve and I, we go back 2, 3, 4 years, and we've been discussing this before Bernie was a viable candidate, right? When he was around 3%, we talked about a simple concept: progressives don't need to agree on everything, but they need to agree on basic tenets. Like, for example, I'm not a gun enthusiast by any stretch of the imagination.
I am a gun enthusiast.
But he and I are going to be allied and thick as thieves until the end because we see the bigger picture. We could have that debate down the road. We could have a civil debate about the Second Amendment and gun control and things of that nature. When we have power in Congress, when we have a truly progressive and or left president, we could have that conversation. But instead of being fractured right now and cannibalizing each other, like I'm seeing from some segments, and for full transparency, my intention is to work on the Sanders campaign and try to help in Northern California. So this isn't something that's coming from someone who's just talking out their fourth hole. It's we need each other. I have donated to Tulsi's campaign because I believe in her. I believe in Bernie Sanders. Just because I may be working for one doesn't mean I'm going to attack the other, because both of these candidates are exactly what this country needs at this time. That's
so,
my spiel.
I have a little bit. I have a different take on that. Because I am in the heads on pikes and general strikes or nothing fucking happens crowd.
You know how close I am to that.
I'm not going to work on a presidential campaign. I think the road to the pathway to neoliberalism begins with choosing a Democratic candidate in the primary and then spending the next several months to year and a half justifying every single shitty decision they make. And it just gets you used to justifying making shitty decisions. It gets you used to saying, well, Bernie's in a really special position, and that's why he can't talk about Assange, because the media, they might say bad things about him, and they might ignore him, and then when they do talk about him, they might say bad things about him, and that's the fucking reasoning.
And let me say, with my full transparency, as I put it out there with wanting to work with the Sanders campaign, if he doesn't start speaking up on behalf of Julian Assange, I'll give him 72 hours. I would give serious consideration to withdrawing and going on Tulsi's. I mean, at the end of the day, your words matter. What you stand for matters. In 2016, he stood for the things that needed to be stood for, hence why I stood for him. And in 2020, it's no different. Things have gotten progressively worse. We need that, and we need him to come out, guns ablazing, saying, this is wrong. This is an attack on every American. It's not an attack on some foreign entity or some foreign person. This is an attack on every American, the basic tenets of this nation, the fourth estate being one of them, and it needs to end. And as president, if anything happens to Julian Assange, I will ensure that everything is reversed.
That's the thing. I mean, Tulsi came out fairly immediately. Mike Gravel was ahead of the curve. God love Mike Gravel. He's done at least 4 Unity for J vigils. He's talked at length about the necessity of Julian Assange's freedom, and not just freedom but exoneration. Gravel released something immediately. Tulsi came out with a fantastic tweet, then went on a couple of major news networks to lay it out when saying no uncertain terms, this is an attack on press freedom. We are essentially sacrificing press freedom at the altar of access journalism. And that's 100% what this is. End of fucking story. Full goddamn stop. And she did that days ago. And yet people are still saying, well, Bernie, he can't do that. And him and Tulsi have the secret plan where she runs to the left of him and he runs track center and he hooks the Hillary voters.
Right. That was the same failed policy that Hillary instituted to get those disaffected Republican voters. How well did that work? No, but Tom Hall of World Socialist website WSWS has a great article. Bernie Sanders silent on Assange, vocal in promoting nationalism at Michigan rally. It's a fantastic article. It really touches on all the points that we've been talking about so far. It goes deeper, obviously, and it goes into more of the things that are going on. But I mean, if Sanders is truly representative of the progressive movement, not necessarily the Marxist movement as we're familiar with, of the progressive movement, he needed to make a statement like Tulsi, like Mike, like others. I mean, hell, you and I, minutes after it was done, were on Twitter.
Yeah.
But our audience isn't in the millions. But at least we laid out our position, and we've laid out our position for a long time on this nonsense with Julian Assange. Bernie really needs to step it up. And you got things like the Independent over in Britain mocking Bernie Bros and Trump supporters, lumping us all into one category for being supporters of Assange.
Well, okay, so that's intentional, though. That's a media narrative. And what that essentially is doing is that's the near attendant wing and the Hillary Clinton wing of the Democratic Party who are putting out all these narratives that want you to think that Bernie is just like Trump. They want the average fucking person who is working their asses off and distracted and fucking stressed out and fucking does not have energy to dedicate to research, to get their sound bites from corporate news and hear the mantra, Bernie is Trump, Bernie is Trump, Bernie is Trump. They want that to become a fucking meme in and of itself, so that no matter what Sanders ends up saying or doing, he is still equated with Donald Trump. I would like to say hello to YouTube user Adingo ate me baby. He's the only guy hanging out in the fucking chat right now. What up, homie? How you doing?
Some friends.
We're gonna have to figure out a way to make this a little bit more promoted.
For sure.
But now that I know what the fuck I'm doing, I got a handle on the software. I think I'll be all right with it. At any rate, I don't. The thing that truly bothers me, even more so than Bernie Sanders being silent on this, is that he brought together this team that was supposed to be the most fiercely like independent journalists. And they brought, Rejoy Gray, and they brought David Sirota, and Rokana came in, and fucking some heavy hitters there. That's what the marketing said. They, to a person, the entire Bernie Sanders team is dead nuts, 100% whole ass silent on this. That's David Sirota. Nary a peep.
And he's usually one of the first people to rattle off about things.
I
retweet him almost 90% of the time.
I went back and checked, and Sirota's had some shit to say about Assange.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like if you're an award-winning journalist,
which he is,
and the mantra, the other progressive proverb, aside from for every bad thing the government's done, there's a clip of Bernie speaking out against it, except rigging the primary against him and Russiagate and the death of press freedom. The other progressive proverb is Bernie listens to us. If we lift our collective voices, we can move him left. Am I wrong about that?
And we have collectively come together in saying Julian Assange being prosecuted, being forcefully removed from his home, is wrong, is incorrect, and an attack on our Constitution. We've said that. We haven't been shy about saying it. We've been upfront with it. We've been attacked for being alongside with pro-Trump supporters. We've been lumped in with the alt-right at this point. We've been lumped in with some real scum, if you will. And we still have stood by and said this whole time that this is nonsense, this is a farce, and all it is a vindictive, butthurt government attempting to scare anyone who wants to put the truth out. And we haven't shaken, but yet Bernie's still quiet. I didn't see anything
So,
from the town
well,
hall addressing
because at the same time, he's got a lot of people who are dedicated, diehard, fervent Bernie supporters who are wonderful fucking folks.
Right.
Like, no slight on them, but they're making these excuses. They're starting to defend these shitty actions as Bernie kind of moves to the center. And let's be perfectly fucking honest. If we did not live in Plastic Pants Crazy Town, Bernie Sanders would be a centrist candidate.
Right. He would be, for all intents and purposes. Since the Democrat Party has been moving right since the Clinton era with third way or centrism, Democratic Party has been moving to the right with neoliberalism and such. There's been a void of a left of center or a left party. So
well,
Democratic Socialist would be a mainstream candidate in this country compared to what people like we want, more of a truly Marxist bent or something of that nature. Even the Green Party would be considered a left of center party in a normal world, a normal, rational world. They wouldn't be seen as radicals or extremists or anything except in this country, in which there is no real representation for the left. It's center or bust, center to the right.
Let's be okay. I'm gonna lay it out as I see it, and you can disagree with me if you feel like I'm off track here on any of this shit. But when they murdered John F. Kennedy, that began the fascist bent 100% of the country. It also began the rightward tilt of the Democrats into the fucking rolling open sewer that they are right now. Let's look at this, because LBJ was one of the most compliant and complacent neoconservatives to ever sit in that fucking office. Civil Rights Voting Act be damned.
Mm-hmm. And that wasn't even all on him. That was more of a move by Kennedy in the memory of Kennedy and honoring that to Kennedy.
Well,
to make sure the Civil Rights Act actually passed. It wasn't even
Bobby had just been shot. Yeah, no, but Bobby was still alive. Mm-hmm. But let's look at it in terms of controlling the narrative, and let's look at it in terms of controlling the population, not just through the narrative, but through deliberate acts of defunding and completely changing the education system, making college an unattainable thing only for the elite. The fact that CEO pay has spiked, but there's a 10.7% union membership nationwide, I believe is the current number. We have income inequality that rivals the pharaohs, according to some articles. Medieval serfs had more vacation time than America. This is all deliberate, 100% part of the program. And the program was, we need to get rid of John F. Kennedy. We need to drive a spike through the heart of anyone with any sort of true liberal or left bent. We're fighting a fucking war on communism, god damn it. We're not gonna have that shit here. We're in the middle of the fucking Cold War, for fuck's sake. And look, man, we've had we've had a Bush or a Bush relative from the time that George H.W. Bush left the CIA directorship in Langley and went straight into the fucking White House.
That's a hell of a jump.
All of the Bush Code demons that were responsible for covering up war crimes in the 80s are running amok in the fucking Trump administration right now. And fuck you, Q fucking morons who are sitting back saying, trust the plan. You know what? You're fucking idiots. And here's why, dude. The goddamn Bush family is running the Trump administration. And you guys are sitting around acting like there's some kind of fucking white hat in the goddamn White House. They're all fucking monsters. You fucking idiots. I swear to Christ, dude. I've had it fucking way up to here with the fucking Q crew. You're fucking morons.
it, it's hard because on one hand, I like when stupid people talk so that you can point out how stupid their beliefs are. Flat earthers, I'm including you in that. But also, people are so susceptible to things that are quasi true or para true, where there's some facts sprinkled in there to support some type of lie or misinformation or something of that nature. It scares me because with me, I'm very attuned to paying attention to multiple sources to try to find out facts on my own and then doing a little bit of research. But I realize that not every American does this, and they pay attention to what CNN breaks down in 5 seconds or Fox News breaks down in 5 seconds, and that's apparently the truth. That's the scariest component of all this is the individual American's inability to take 10 minutes a day and just cross-reference a couple things that they're interested in to find out, hey, this doesn't add up here, this doesn't add up here, let me look at something else. Instead, they consume whatever the mainstream puts out, and it's gospel. For example, like I said, Assange was the Fourth Estate was a very popular movie. It made money. It was a good movie. Why? That was before 2016. Then all of a sudden 2016 happens, and Julian Assange is the Antichrist.
Well, yeah. Well, again, I mean, the Democrats are trying to criminalize exposing their corruption.
If it was the Republicans, they would have celebrated.
That's what fascists do everywhere, and that's exactly what Vladimir Putin wants to do for the 82,000 plus WikiLeaks documents that have his fucking name attached to it. Fucking Democrat pussy hat fucking morons.
So Republicans in there too. I mean, Trump is famous for saying he wants to lock up all journalists that disagree with him. The
Well,
Republican Party is wholesale fascist party to begin with. Democrats are following lockstep.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, people give us shit for picking on the Democrats, but look, man, it's not because we're fans of the Republicans. It's because the marketing for the Democrats says that they are morally better, that they are smarter, that they are more capable, that they work better with others, that they are more diverse, and that they are not racist, and that they are anti-war, and they're except for the really good wars, we just want the good wars, and fuck, that's what the marketing says. So we are going after the fucking narrative. We're breaking the branding on this shit. It's fucking, if you want to make rational grown-up adult choices, you need to be able to have access to not just more information than what you're able to glean in 5 minutes, period, no matter what the fuck it is, let alone what's going on with your goddamn government. But you need to be able to not let the narrative take away your critical thinking, like Jimmy Dore says, like Ron Placone says. I don't like Trump, but he didn't steal my critical thinking.
Right.
Well,
what bothers me the most is this binary rationale, where people, if you oppose the Democrats and you speak about them, then you must automatically be a Republican, forgetting the fact that there's a multitude of ideologies that exist in this world. It's not just two trains of thought here.
Well, again, that's
call out the Democrats because we're not going to tolerate their crap, but we're out here just the same calling the Republican Party, the American Taliban Party, or fascists, or we attack them just as much. But it's the neoliberals and your centrist Democrats that like to tar us all in with the Trump crowd, or that we're Republican operatives, or whatever nonsense, stupid ass backwards methodology that they use to try to tar us with a broad brush.
Because the propaganda says 100% of American politics is represented by these two parties. The Democrats represent 50% of the left end of the spectrum, and the Republicans meet them at that 50% and represent the rest of the right, when in reality, the Republicans are over here on the far right, and the Democrats are right the fuck up next to them. And then behind them, you've got like milk toast Reagan era Republicans.
There you go.
Right, and then behind them, you've got
liberals.
No, you've got Pinochet.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there you go. That's a good reference. I like that one.
And then behind them,
Anybody, you
you've
got
got like
Google, just
Margaret
Google
Thatcher.
Pinochet real quick.
My point is they bullshit you into thinking that the left and the right are represented by Nancy Pelosi and Ron Paul.
When in all actuality, as of 2017, it showed that 22 to 26% of the electorate was Democrat, and I believe it was 21 to 24% were Republican. That means a huge swath of the country is none of the above.
It's true. And there, I mean, why wouldn't you be, honestly? If you've got one corporate entity pretending to be two political parties when in reality they're nothing more than the fucking PR firm for the oligarchs that run the show. Why? That's George fucking Carlin, dude. George Carlin had a great bit about the illusion of choice.
Oh,
right?
right.
Yeah. They give you 32 flavors of ice cream and two fucking political parties that are both going to do the exact same fucking thing. That's the illusion of choice. Fucking that's what we deal with every day, and that illusion is again part of rewriting real time. Like, I can't fucking stress this enough, man. Black Thought said in a fucking rhyme that he was separating fact from folklore.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's what every fucking human being has to do all the time right now. We're inundated with fucking propaganda, and we get it everywhere we are, dude. I have a counter jockey job as my second gig. It pays for the studio fees for Slow News Day when we go and do that shit, you know? The amount of shit that I hear that I'm like, where did you even hear that report? Like, who is saying that? And what it is a game of telephone.
Right. And that's the biggest issue. It's like, I try to stress to people, you don't have to dive into it as much as I do and do as much research as I do and try to basically, I'm making an argument against the world, so I have to have citable evidence at all times. So I have to be in deep research when I'm talking about a subject or when I write an article or when we do a show like this. I have to have a multitude of facts supporting what I'm saying. But every average American, if they took 10 minutes to question, why am I in a bad situation? Why hasn't, no matter what, if I voted Republican or Democrat, why has my situation not alleviated? Why were my wages stagnant from the 1970s all the way until recently, where it had a massive, 1.5% increase or whatever, while CEOs jumped exponentially to the point where they were making 356 times what their average worker at their company were making? Why is it that our medical system is charging so much and offering us so little? Why is it that our educational system has tuition fees that basically can buy a house instead of living? Why is college students spending the next 30 years paying for student debt as opposed to a home? Why are we having jobs when we go through and get our bachelor's degrees that paid nothing? We were told as kids, we were promised if we went to school and we tried really, really, really hard, we could live the American dream. And yet none of us could see that unless we have some type of wealth in our background. At the end of the day, if Americans started asking these questions and going, why hasn't it worked with either a Republican or a Democrat in power, a Republican Congress or a Democratic Congress in power? I think that would be the beginning of people starting to really reassess our political system that we currently have, because otherwise it's going to be a bunch of people complaining and nothing getting done.
Yeah, and that's why I can't really see myself ever working for a Democrat ever again. I don't feel like pulling people back into the duopoly is a legitimate avenue for
crime against humanity.
And again, man, like, I'm for whatever gets us to the fully automated gay luxury space communism that Star Trek promised us the fastest. I really am. Like, so we can go ahead and harness that dilithium crystal energy and we can get the shit going. Like, I'm for that. I am. I don't think that realistically you can incrementally legislate your way out of an oligarchy. I don't.
I think the quagmire that we run into is that the American people can only process two political parties at a time. That's my excuse. Do I support the Democrat Party in any form or function, even if Bernie Sanders were to become the standard bearer and all of a sudden you had a bunch of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes that were from top to bottom running a majority Congress? No, because it doesn't go as far as I want. It is an incremental step in getting to what I want. But at the end of the day, I can't come out to people and be like, here's why you need to vote Marxist. This is why you need to get into the Marxist movement. I've been trying to do that for years. And people automatically have their preconceived notions and misinformation from socialism that, the biggest argument, Venezuela. Like they've found out some witty, retort when they're absolute imbeciles, not understanding what's going on in Venezuela to begin with, what got them to a certain point, and how it's not as bad as everybody's putting out there. It's difficult in this country because people want to believe what they want to believe. I get into a religious argument. I'm an atheist. I have to walk away from the argument and go, okay, because of blind faith. It's one of those things that Americans are just so, how do I phrase this? They're so comfortable in their linear thought that they can't be exposed to outside rationale or outside logic, outside thoughts that may disturb their little bubble. And this doesn't just pertain to a left-right issue. This is just Americans in general.
Well,
so for me, it's hard to come at people with a Marxist, which I would like to do. So I have to work within the confines of a very rigid system that's set up to make me fail regardless. That's my logic, I guess.
I did a show where I interviewed Ron Pacone, and it was the first time I had him on my show.
Love him.
And by the way, if anybody catches this by next Friday, if you're in the Santa Cruz area, Ron Pacone will be in Boulder Creek. He'll be telling jokes. It'll be fucking awesome.
Get there.
Email me at slownewsdaypodcast@gmail.com, and I will get you hooked up with ticket information and directions. On that show with Ron, I asked him if capitalism was a religion. And I kind of laid out my case as to why I think capitalism is a religion. And if you look at the arguments for capitalism, the arguments by Americans and the West, at least, it's similar to what you hear about, communism. We've never tried real capitalism. We've never had a truly unregulated free market. So real capitalism is an imaginary place, or it is an ideal. It is a tenet of faith. It is not an actual tangible thing. Right. On top of that, how does the free market work? How does it work, Jay?
The whole central tenet of it is greed. I mean, let's be real.
The invisible hand decides it. The invisible hand of the free market decides.
My main contention against that is, if you want this purist capitalism, why has everything leading up to it been an utter failure?
So look, let's roll with that. Let's roll with that. But we've never had real capitalism. Capitalism is an imaginary place. It is ruled by an invisible being, the invisible hand, which I assume is a much more gently bearded version of Thing from fucking Addams Family.
Basically Jesus of Goldman Sachs. Got it.
Right. So and then in order to be successful at capitalism, what do you have to do? You have to follow these certain steps of these certain rules.
Right. The scriptures is what you're trying to get at, I think.
Yeah, it is sort of commandment type, There are the however many steps to success when I show like that. There's all these books, but the central hook to capitalism is Sun Tzu's Art of War.
Yes. I would not argue that.
And Atlas Shrugged.
You're right.
So this goes back to, we have no actual idea what history is.
Right.
We don't know if Sun Tzu existed. Do you know if Sun Tzu existed? Can you say unequivocally that Sun Tzu existed?
I can say much I could say much like Jesus, you know, anything's a possibility.
And then Atlas Shrugged, which my favorite quote about Atlas Shrugged
You mean the New Testament of capitalism, right?
yes, the New Testament of
I just want to
capitalism.
clarify.
Absolutely. At 100%. Well, see,
clarify.
now you're picking up what I'm putting down, and I appreciate that. My favorite quote about Atlas Shrugged that I'm probably going to butcher is that there are two books that every teenage boy should read that are pivotal for 14-year-olds, and it's The Lord of the Rings and Atlas Shrugged. And one is a fantastical fairy tale full of improbable, impossible, inhuman characters that, if taken too seriously, will lead to an unhealthy detachment from reality and some serious problems growing up later in life. And the other, of course, involves orcs.
I tried really hard to suppress that. Ooh.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're not wrong is the sad part.
And I can't believe that, like, Paul Ryan would hand that book out to fucking people who would come to work for him in the Senate. If they, like, it's the New Testament of capitalism, and it's disseminated to new incoming congressmen and their staff, and basically told to be read as such. We've got a supernatural belief system that, if Americans were being honest with themselves, they would admit supersedes Christianity as the #1 religion in the country.
Easily.
So if you're trying to communicate an alternate way of thinking, you are 100% trying to communicate with a religious person about their tenets of faith in a way that is, when you challenge it, it comes across as an attack. You're attacking their belief system. You're attacking fundamentally who they are as a person. Capitalism is what made us win the Cold War, and capitalism is responsible for every advancement in technology and fucking.
It's the only reason why innovation happens. You know that, right?
So Bill O'Reilly famously questioned how the tides came in and went out, and nobody knew that. And I'm pretty sure that it was capitalism, homie. I'm pretty sure that that's what pulls the waves in. And
it's amazing. It really is. And I think the biggest way to summarize this entire argument is, if you remember correctly, the attack on back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s on communism was calling them godless heathens. Only capitalists could have a religion like Jesus and Christianity and be pure and be innocent and be uncorruptible, etc. And those heathen, godless socialists, those Marxists, they're out there they're going to rape your daughters. They're going to kill your dog. They're going to, set fire to your house. It's you got to be careful as damn communists. I'm just saying. That was a train of thought for decades.
I don't often advocate that people listen to Bob Dylan. I don't. I think that Bob Dylan songs are best heard covered. But Talking John Birch Society Blues is Bob Dylan's song about hunting commies. And man, I feel like, do you know who Todd Snyder is?
I've heard the name in passing.
Okay, he's a storyteller, singer, songwriter. He's a great guy, man. He's a stand-up fucking comedian in his own right. He puts on just a fantastic show. But he's ripped off a bunch of old folk songs before, and he came and done his own spin on it. And I feel like Talking John Birch Society Blues should be revamped and brought back into the consciousness in wake of Russiagate by some fucking clever lefty. So if you're out there and you hear this and you are feeling inspired to make a 3-chord song where it's just you rambling, Said what I'm saying is save me from having to do it. I have a lot on my
And I'll be the first person to tell you, I have the musical capability of a person with no arms, no legs, the inability to hear and see. So there's that.
I feel like we stopped talking about Julian Assange a while ago.
Shall we bring it back?
Do you have the consortium news article about what Julian has coming for him? Do you have that piece up?
Let me get that up.
Because Elizabeth Voss, for the people that are watching and will watch, Elizabeth Voss, friend of the show, is no longer with Disobedient Media. She's a contributor for Consortium News right now, which is Joe Lauria's, I think, his outlet. And Consortium News is at the heart of the Unity for Julian Assange vigils. And both Elizabeth and Joe are, if not permanent hosts, fairly frequent hosts. Elizabeth Voss is a fantastic writer. And she has covered Julian Assange, if not more and better than as much and certainly as good as any of the best people who have ever written a fucking word about the guy. Did you find that piece?
Keep filling.
Okay. I highly recommend you go check out her newest piece in Consortium News, which I will post a link to in the description after we go off air. The prison that Julian Assange is being held in right now is referred to as the UK's Guantanamo. It's where they've housed all of their terrorism suspects. It's where they've housed like their most notorious criminals, and they put Julian Assange in this place. The last time Julian Assange was in jail in England is when they were putting metal shavings into his food. Broke one of his teeth. He's had complications ever since. There is no legitimate reason to expect that Julian Assange is going to get even the semblance of fair treatment in a UK jail or in a U.S. jail.
Not at all. Not at all. And
I gotta step away
that
from
has been woefully misled or ignorant of the last 30 years.
I gotta step away for a sec, homie.
No worries. I'm going to keep talking, maybe start swearing at my computer and this Wi-Fi connection here. I've got a screen that, in theory, should have all this information on it, but it's slowly and methodically trying to make me have heart failure or stroke. Beautiful. Let's see. We got Contraspin. We got Intel Guts Challenge. You know what? We're gonna go right here.
Hey. All right, man.
Yeah, I've got pretty much talking when she was editor-in-chief at Disobedient. I've got Contraspin articles. I've got Consortium, WSWS. But I'm not finding anything hitting on this particular article other than something that's giving me indigestion.
Okay. It's all right. I put it on my face page. We will see if Facebook took it down.
Oh, give it 5 minutes. That'll happen.
There we go. No.
I don't know how I have 10,000 followers on Facebook for people of the 99% when they shut me down for half of the last 4 years. 23 February 2019, when she was still editor-in-chief.
Okay, so I've got the article in front. I've got the article in front of me right now, and again, I'll put a link to it in the description. So, the article goes through a lot of the previous charges or levied against the prison in general. There's a litany of offenses that guards have caused. And now we're to okay. The other day, or no, the other day, when Mike Pompeo was director of the CIA, he compared WikiLeaks to Al Qaeda, calling it a non-state hostile intelligence service.
Right.
Let's be perfectly honest right here. If they're comparing WikiLeaks as an organization to Al Qaeda, he's going to. Chris Hedges is quoted in here saying they're going to put him on a black flight. They're going to put a black hood over his head. They're going to take him to where the fuck ever they want to take him. And they're going to torture the shit out of him. They want him to admit to committing a crime. They want to punish him. They want to drag his ass into the dark and never let him see the light of day again. And here's, this is more of Hedges going on. Everyone has a breaking point, and they will attempt to psychologically destroy him. And we've seen with Guantanamo that several of these detainees, most of whom were just sold to the U.S. by warlords in Afghanistan or Pakistan, are emotionally crippled for life. It will be scientific torture.
Well, if this helps any, and this is our attack on Democrats, WAPO came out 4 days ago with a title, Julian Assange expelled from his embassy purge will fight extradition.
Mm-hmm.
This is a collection of, this is the duopoly doing a direct attack on all those that don't agree with him. And I can't stress this enough. I know we deviated and we went on kind of a tangent, but at the heart of this entire episode, at the heart of this entire monologue, if you will, or duologue, or whatever the hell, is Julian Assange just publishing the truth. That's all he did. He didn't fabricate anything. He didn't sensationalize anything. He didn't make it sexy for people's consumption. He helped to ensure that the world was knowledgeable in war crimes and in other misdeeds by the U.S. government in Iraq.
And for that has been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize every year since 2010. WikiLeaks has never had to retract a single story that they have ever printed. Not once.
Name another news source outside of, smaller independents like us that have never had to retract. And
that's not to say that I won't get shit wrong. I'll get some shit wrong, but I'll let you know. But I'm not.
We cover a tenth of what WikiLeaks has and what's brought forth and enlightened the world with. It's not a left or right thing. Transparency shouldn't be a biased side. Transparency should be the cornerstone in which this world lives in, where transparency of government, transparency of military action, the police. There should be absolutely nothing opaque when it comes to that. And what Julian Assange did simply was to kind of clean the smears that existed and made it to where we could see what was actually going on. That is his quote-unquote crime.
There's some good meat in that Liz Wass piece where the notion that he was outing government agents or outing operators in the Chelsea Manning drop was looked at by the U.S. Justice Department. They went to go chase it down. They found out that, yes, as a matter of fact, the Pentagon had been contacted by WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks had given them the opportunity to redact the names that they felt needed to be redacted. The Pentagon refused to talk to WikiLeaks.
So whose blood is any of those people's hands truly on?
What
We have to ask
what
ourselves
I'm
that question. We know the answer.
well, what I'm saying is essentially, and this goes back to a point that you made, this shit's already been litigated.
It's done. There is no due process here. I want people to understand that. I want people to understand that when they find him guilty, and there should be no question that when they find him guilty, it was a foregone conclusion conducted in 2010.
I had John Kiriakou on, and I've heard him talk about this in other videos and on a Unity for J Vigil as well. The court that they are going to put Assange in, if he ever makes it to a U.S. court, first of all, it will be a closed hearing. We will only have access to leaked information, and we aren't going to have any control as to who's doing the leaking. But from what John Kiriakou had to say, the judge is a notorious media whore. She likes the spotlight. She was leaking information to the press so that she could go back out and give a press conference about the information that she had leaked. It's called espionage court. It's in Northern Virginia. The jury pool will all be members of the intelligence community or relatives of members of the intelligence community or of a member of Congress or a lobbyist, somebody in that sphere, somebody in the exact group, cabal, whatever you want to call them, of people that want to silence Julian Assange.
Think Salem witch trials. When you're thinking of
the
this particular
Salem witch
court
trial
setting.
at least had witnesses, homie. I mean,
but we all know that the Salem witch trials was a bunch of nonsense. That's the closest thing I can associate it to at this juncture, to kind of put it in people's heads how nonsensical this trial is going to be. And yeah, I'm the guy who does air quotes with his fingers. If you don't like it, I can't help you. Basically, what I was looking up was FISA court, which is basically what they're going to try to do, the Foreign Intelligence Service Court.
Yeah.
And it's literally a kangaroo court. It was essentially created in '78 to oversee requests for surveillance warrants against foreign spies, but it's expanded, obviously, in its decades of existence.
Hey, you want to know who the director of the CIA was in 1978?
Oddly enough, I think it's could it be a George was his first name? I'm just throwing that out there. Is there a possibility that I'm onto something?
Indeed. I want the folks at home to really get comfortable with the idea that, and you don't have to agree yet or at all, but I want you to process the idea that the Central Intelligence Agency has been in the White House since at least, at the very earliest, 1981. At the very earliest, like running the fucking show, controlling the narrative. In 1986, 1987, the Fairness Doctrine was repealed. The Fairness Doctrine was the law on the books in the United States that if you presented one side of a story, you had to give an equal amount of time to present the other side of the story. Flash forward to 96 and the Telecom Act, consolidating all of the 50 plus media companies that we had operating in the US into the 6 that we currently have. And I think they're trying to go down to 5 now. Then we had the Patriot Act. And we're going to have to talk about 9/11 some other time because I'm eventually going to have to go. But the Patriot Act, all fucking however many thousand pages of it, was ready to go within 2 days. And that led us up to the reauthorization of the National Defense Authorization Act in 2012, which legalized propaganda. And that's when we saw all of the cable news shows bring on all of these experts that had security clearances or were former national security directors. Yeah. Um, People like Michael fucking Hayden are regulars on Bill Maher's show, and like supposed to be some sort of credible human being. James Clapper, they let that motherfucker on TV. Like he's
Lynn's
got
face was all over the TV before his downfall. You know, it's, and I do want to make a, because I feel like I said something, and I need to add a word to it. Assange's trials will be much like FISA courts. So I don't know if I said that, but for some reason it's nagging at me. So I'm just trying to go for clarification. Ex parte, just the judge and the government present at the hearings. That's what's essentially going to happen with Julian Assange. FISA is ones that try to seek warrants. And so I meant to add like a FISA court.
Yeah.
I feel better now. That's been eating at me for 30 seconds. But no, you're 100% spot on with what you're saying. And at the end of the day, if I could summarize this for a conclusion, I can't stress this enough. And I heavily support when you said you don't necessarily have to agree just yet with what we're saying. You may absolutely despise Julian Assange. You may think that he is the scum of the earth and that he cost the candidate that you worked hard for, maybe going door to door, maybe being a canvas captain, maybe you spoke with your daughters and saying that they're going to be witnesses to the first woman president, etc. All legitimate grievances. You may despise him thinking that he cost her an election. You may be one of those individuals who just don't understand enough about what WikiLeaks does, what actually occurred with Ed Snowden, what occurred with Chelsea Manning. You may not be knowledgeable enough what's going on, but it doesn't matter why you either love or hate Julian Assange. You have to understand that this trial is a direct attack on every American citizen, that this trial is a direct attack on our Constitution. It is a direct attack on everything that you hold near and dear. It's not just about journalists. It's not just about some foreign guy from Australia who is causing problems. It is literally an attack on each and every American's rights to freedom of speech, freedom of petition, freedom of the press. And those are the hallmarks, the cornerstones that stop violent revolutions from happening every 6 months because we don't agree with the government. We'll say violent revolution for another show. But at the end of the day, love or hate Julian Assange, you have to be supportive of this man not being prosecuted for simply publishing the truth. There was not an ounce of lie in all those documents. Hundreds of thousands of pieces of information were disseminated, and none of it was incorrect. So at the end of the day, ask yourself, are you willing to sacrifice the Constitution? Are you willing to sacrifice your civil rights, your rights in general, because you dislike a guy who hurt your feelings? Are you going to be that person? Or are you going to stand up and say, you know what, I may disagree with the man, I may not personally like the man, but what's happening here is wrong, and I'm tired of it. I'm exhausted of it. And actually do something. That's the question I want to leave people with, if I can.
The camera decided to start wigging out. It's switching back and forth between us like crazy. It's super fucking weird. Now it's gonna stop. Look, man, I agree with you. Caitlin Johnstone wrote a piece called "Your Feelings on Assange Don't Matter," and
I haven't read that one yet, for the record, either.
Okay, it couldn't be more on point. The reason you know so much about Julian Assange and the reason you know so little about WikiLeaks as an organization is because the only way you can ignore the attack on press freedom, the only way you can overlook the death of independent journalism, the only way that people like Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange continue to be tortured for doing nothing but getting us vital information that we need. The only way that happens is if they can poison your mind with a picture of a character and make that character what you know. And if you only know that character, this fictional being, if that's all that you have in your head when you think about Julian Assange, you're going to react in a predictive, emotional manner. And that's what we have going on in this country every single day. Predictive planning, emotional, visceral reactions to things. That is soundbite culture. That is call out culture. That is everything in technology that says more, faster, now, instant. That is 24-hour news. It is predictive programming, and you can fucking get out of that shit. There is a way around that shit. You can do that. You can watch independent media. You can support independent content creators. You, instead of getting fucking cable, can donate a little bit each month to people's Patreon so that they can still keep doing their thing, because this is not easy shit. It's easy shit to report on, because all you have to do is turn on the news for 5 minutes, understand what the narrative and the bullshit is, and fucking bring it to people's attention.
Right.
That is easy. What is hard is doing it and not getting terminally fucking depressed every single day, because you're essentially what fucking Jimmy Dore has as his goddamn mascot. You're sitting there screaming into a megaphone that's pointed at your ear. Like, that is one of the most appropriate images I have seen in media in a long time.
It summarizes pretty much all that we're doing.
I would like to say that if you're in an area where you can organize a protest to stand with Julian Assange, please fucking do that. I know that there's protests going on outside the prison right now. I know that there's events being organized in Australia. I think we should get on that as independent media. I think that's something that we should, collaborate on and shoot for. Don't be afraid to talk to your friends about Julian Assange. Don't be. It might be a weird conversation. It might be. But if you get on Twitter, and you go to WikiLeaks, or you go to Consortium News, or you go to Disobedient Media, or Caitlin Johnstone,
even
or
WSWS,
World Socialist website is a good one of their founders or one of their editors has done some Unity for JStreams. All of the information is available, like Jason said a few times. It's all out. It's available to you. You can find this information and you can communicate it to other people. And you can do it with the knowledge that it's factual, you're doing the right thing, and being ostracized by at least people on the internet is a lot different than being ostracized by people in your community. And fortunately, a couple of the places that I work, I'm either responsible for them getting their vices, or I'm responsible for stuff in their house working, or I'm responsible for water draining properly where it's supposed to. So I'm
you're in a position of power right there.
The worker, Jason, always has the power. The worker just needs to realize that there are more of us than there are of management.
Truly, that's an absolutely true statement. And I want to piggyback on what you said. Also, make calls to your Congress people. It sounds stupid, but be angry and demand things. Get involved with those protests. America needs to step up like we haven't stepped up in a while. And this is a direct attack on every American with this trial. We need, again, to put away feelings. I'm an Assange fan. I've been an Assange fan since the Bush administration, since I discovered WikiLeaks, since I discovered the whole platform. I thought it was brilliant the way they set it up, and how they truly try to protect their sources is beyond admirable. It should be the cornerstone of how every journalism outlet in this world works, not just this country. Get out there, do the protest, make the phone calls, raise hell. It doesn't matter if you become ostracized. We've gone public with our views. I for 4 years, Steve for much longer. And if I was worried about making friends and being polite, then I'm in the wrong industry completely. My job isn't here to be your friend. My job is here to try to provide you with the truth and let you run with it as best as you can. People of the 99%, for example, my whole premise is everything that I write is verifiable. I'll give you the information. I will show you where to look. I will give you all sorts. WikiLeaks inspired that. Julian Assange inspired that. Now, I don't do as they do. I don't go for confidential information and have people drop it and then we produce it. We go a different route. We report things that are going on with issues and we present to you all the pieces of evidence that we came to that conclusion with. Julian Assange is a hero to anybody who wants transparency and truth. It doesn't matter how you feel. At the end of the day, the man is something that we should, at least in the journalism community, hold up high as a Bernstein or as a Cronkite, or he is up there and beyond because he's not owned by a corporate entity. He's not receiving funds to advertise and sway his opinion and steer things in a direction that his corporate overlords say that he has to. I can't stress this enough. Love him or hate him, this is an attack on your rights. Stand up or just be submissive. Roll over and play dead, I suppose. Those are your two options.
Free Julian Assange. Good luck to us all. And if you dig it, like it, share it, subscribe to the show, tell friends about it. We're going to be doing a lot more of these. We'll see you guys later. You have a good night.